are live. Welcome, everyone, to the Melanin Initiative. I'm Dr. Kimberly Madison, a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner and one of your co-hosts here at the Melanin Initiative. I host this show with Geraldine and Alicia, who send their love in their absence. In healthcare, there is often too much information and not enough time. Here at the Melanin Initiative, we avoid TMI. By breaking things down into language you can understand, we create a safe space for you to ask your questions and share a nursing perspective without taking up too much of your time. We're super excited about this new series that we're starting. It's going to be called Becoming a Physician, and we're honored today to be joined by Clarence, who's allowing us to document his journey while he's in med school all the way till he finishes and becomes a full-fledged doctor. I'm going to get into why I decided to do this in just a little bit, but first we're going to just do our little disclaimer. As you know, this show is for educational purposes only. The opinions expressed here are our opinions alone. They are not a representation of any of our affiliations. If you're experiencing a medical emergency, you should seek medical attention and medical guidance from your healthcare provider. If you think you're having a physical emergency, you can call 911. And if you or someone you know might be having a mental health emergency, you can call 988. So we have a lot to go over. So I will give a little hint as what we're going to talk about today. This is the first of many episodes with Clarence. What we're going to do, what I envision that we have him come back every semester. We'll follow his journey, find out how the semester went, get a glimpse into the whole journey of becoming a doctor, and just hear how his perspective evolves through the next decade. So today we're going to talk about his journey to becoming a medical student, any mentors or peers that have helped him along the way, how he selected his med school, his vision for the future, as well as his perspective on the current state of healthcare and where he sees it going in the next 10 years. We'll learn what he didn't know prior to starting medical school and what he wished he knew before he started. So welcome, Clarence. Welcome to the Melanin Initiative.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So
This is awesome. Is this your first podcast?
it is actually, yeah, it's my first podcast. So I'm so excited.
That's awesome. I told him, I was like, do you have an accent? And he said, no one ever told him that. First thing I heard. So why don't you just tell us, the audience, just a little bit about yourself, kind of like where you're from, your family,
That's so funny.
and what you do when you're not doing podcasts.
Sure, yeah. So I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I grew up there in a specific area called Crown Heights. Crown Heights is one of the more underserved areas, one of the more dangerous neighborhoods that I grew up in. But I made it here, and so I'm excited. And so that's really where my journey started, in Crown Heights, and seeing a lot of the healthcare disparities and witnessing it. People who look just like me going through so many hardships, and doctors that didn't look like me, who kind of had a different mindset in terms of patient care, depending on the area that I was in. And so outside of that, my family, I used to live with my mom, but now I relocated to California for medical school. So she's back at home in New York with my little brother, my little sister. And they're both, my little brother's in college right now. He wants to do psychology and theater. And my younger sister wants to go into fashion design. So they're both very creative, more creative than me anyway. And so outside of that, I also have a dog that I brought with me from New York that I got her when she was about 8 years old. I mean, when she was born, and I've had her for the past 8 years. So she's been my company since I've been out here in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's awesome. What kind of dog is it?
She's a Maltese Yorkie mixed breed.
Oh, and what's her name?
Mila. She turns 9 on the 26th of next month.
Oh, wonderful. Happy birthday, Mila. I have a puppy. Sometimes he speaks. So I always just like to give people a heads up about that.
Okay, I understand.
So yeah, so one of the reasons, which I don't even remember if I shared this with you, one of the reasons I wanted to do this series, I've been in healthcare almost 15 years actually. And of late, I tend to ask a lot of people, what does he want to be? And they say, oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a nurse practitioner. I want to be a nurse. I want to be a physician assistant. And I say, oh, so why do you want to be in healthcare? Right? Because as I've been in healthcare, I realize it's not just enough to want to be that role. Like, you're participating in an industry that takes up the largest percentage of the GDP of the government. It's one of the top 10 industries in the country. And because I've been in healthcare through the pandemic, it's changed quite a bit in just a really short period of time. And so I see a whole lot of people leaving healthcare, but I still see a whole generation of people flocking here, right? And so I'm just curious, like, what, and I think too back, I'm reflecting on my time in healthcare about what did I invest in to understand what I was going into. And so I asked that question, and everyone has the same answer. I want to help people. Right. And so I think you're like, well, you can help people at the grocery store. You can hold a door for them. There's a million ways to help people. What is it about healthcare that makes you want to help people? But it's still the most common response. And while that's happening on one side, I consume a lot of content. So I still see these conversations where people are saying they don't trust healthcare,
Mm,
right? That it's all about business and we're only in it for the money. And so it's such an interesting dichotomy to see that these two themes are so dominant. And I thought, well, and then there's another thing, right? So now I'm a new nurse practitioner and I'm looking at my physician colleagues a whole lot different, right? And I realized I spent so much time learning how to become a nurse practitioner. I only know a little bit about what it took to really become a physician. And I just started following a bunch of physicians in the last year that have been more dominant in social media. And I have so much more empathy and understanding of what they're going through and like how much time that they're investing and the commitment and the sacrifice. So when I hear people saying things like it's just the business and it's only about the money, it's like, if you could just see what they're going through. And I thought, why don't we just share, right? Because we work side by side, it doesn't mean we know each other's stories. And so I just think this is just such a wonderful opportunity, not only to get to know you personally and see how your thought process evolves, but just to share your story with the public so that they just have a deeper understanding of what it takes to get in your position.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and so simultaneously, I don't even know if I should talk about this one because it hasn't happened yet, but it's supposed to happen tomorrow. I'm also going to be starting a series called Becoming a Doctor of Nurse Practitioner. And
Mhm.
so a Doctor of Nursing Practice, which is one of the terminal degrees in nursing. And it's another Black male. And so I just think it's going to be so awesome to follow both your stories and the parallel of that and check in with both of you, each of your semesters, and just see that journey, not only for the public and awareness, but also for the generations coming. They're
Yeah.
going to love to be able, people are going to be in middle school watching your story. And when you graduate, they're going to be applying to med school. It's going to just be so awesome. I just know you're going to get letters. You're going to hear from people who are going to say, I've been watching your story and you inspired me to do this. And I just think it's awesome. And so I'm so happy to do this. I really can't thank you enough.
Yes, thank you. I'm so honored to be here. I've been looking for a way to really showcase my story and tell the hardships that I've been through because I've had more of a difficult road to get to where I am, but I've also been very fortunate along the way. So I'm excited to talk about it.
And I'll have to rebut. You say you're not creative. I found you on Instagram, and I really have to commend you because a lot of times when people are in these professional programs, they don't have time, and you've made the time to share your story, and you are quite creative. Well, and so I'm gonna just disagree with you on that. And you have the confidence to come out here and share your story. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
so so let's just jump into it. So if you could just share us your journey on, how you decided to even go pursue medicine.
Definitely, yeah. So to answer your earlier question, why medicine, I think it's always stems from the idea of wanting to help people. When I was growing up, my dad was a nurse, and then he went back to school, became a nurse practitioner as well. So I was always influenced by the medical field. My aunt is also a nurse, and so my family's divided between law enforcement and healthcare. I will be the first doctor in my family, and so that's really exciting. But like I mentioned before, growing up in Crown Heights and seeing the disparities in health that I didn't realize when I was young was very important. And so as I was growing up and going through college, initially I wanted to be a veterinarian because you fall in love with animals as a kid, you're excited, you want to take care of them. But then I realized that when I talk to animals, they don't really talk back. And so then that made me realize that maybe having more human interaction would be a better idea. So then you think about, well, what aspect of medicine are you interested in? And so I realized early on that I wanted to specialize. I wanted to do something very specific and dedicate all of my time to it. And I knew that being a physician would give me the most rigorous form of education, but also allow me to highly specialize and be able to interact with patients that would make things very personal. Every person's life decision would be in my hand, and I'd be able to influence and really have an impact on lives throughout my entire life. And that's something I was really interested in. And so I started college with as a pre-med student, and the first institution I went to were was well, I won't say the name of where I went to, but the first institution that I went to right before I got accepted to college, my dad passed away, and so it created a lot of distraction and stress on me. And as a result, my first semester GPA was as low as like I think it was like a 1.6 or something like that on a 4.0 scale, which is like failing. And so my guidance counselor, when I went to them, my advisor told me that you would never be a doctor. He told me I would never be a doctor. And so that really stuck with me. And I decided that I wanted to leave the school and I was going to transfer elsewhere. And so I ended up transferring to UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And that's where I got my undergraduate education. And they really supported me and understood my story. I wanted to give me as much help and resources as possible. And so after I graduated with my bachelor's in biology. I moved back home and pursued research, and I took a gap year. And for anyone who doesn't know what a gap year is, that's just basically the time period between ending school and starting school again. We use that time period to kind of just fill it with extracurriculars. Some people like to travel. You can do what you want with that time period. But I knew that I really wanted to focus on getting research and publications to help me get into medical school. And so I did research at Hofstra University in Long Island, and then applied to 43 different medical schools. And so I knew that my statistics were kind of average, and I wanted to give myself the best possibility of doing so. And so I knew early on that this was the plan. So I really worked on my credit throughout college so I could take out a plethora of credit cards so that way I could afford to pay for it. And so the downside is that ended up accruing about 30 grand worth of debt applying to medical school. But I was able to get accepted to three medical schools and finally choose my current school, Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science. And, you know, since I've been there, they've been very supportive. And I wouldn't be, if I had to do it again, I would do it the exact same way. Unless I knew I was getting into school, then I would just apply one, save myself the extra debt. But I've been very, very fortunate in getting accepted to med school. And that's how I ended up here.
That's wonderful. During that gap year, what did you focus your research on?
Oh, so I have an interest in dermatology. I've been interested since college, and so my research was focused on creating a substance that we could use in scar formation to decrease the amount of scar tissue that's formed after implants. And so we were able to find out that utilizing the material that we use, that we were actually able to decrease the amount of scar tissue formed after heart implants. And so that was really exciting, and it related to dermatology because it focused on collagen and elastin, which are important molecules in the elasticity of scars and skin in general.
That's awesome. Yeah, actually, my first bachelor's was in biology also. And I told him my uncle's name is Clarence. I feel like this was meant to be. The more you talk, the more I realize this was destined. I think I saw your page the first time because I helped run diversity in dermatology. I helped run that page. I think you popped up over there, and that's how I initially saw you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so did you have any mentors or peers along the way? And I'm so sorry to hear about your dad, by the way.
Oh, yeah. When my dad passed away, I think that's when a plethora of mentors stepped in. My first mentor was my family medicine doctor, my primary care doctor. His name is Dr. Olasanya Rufai. He's located in Brooklyn on Ocean Avenue, and he really embraced me as his own son and put me in his clinic and said, if this is what you want to do, I'm going to show you everything. And he let me get hands-on with patients, do testing, sit in rooms with him, and really understand what it meant to be a doctor. And one thing about him is that as an African-American physician, he definitely learned to cultivate the area around him. And so his patients were like family. So everyone gave him a hug. They really laughed and joked with him. And although his wait times are long because of the amount of patients that he has, everyone is just waiting and so excited and happy to see him. And I think that's the first time I entered a doctor's office and saw patients who were happy and just really wanted to wait to see him and converse with him. And he knows everyone personally. And then during my gap year, I worked at PM Pediatrics, a pediatric office. And one of the doctors there, Dr. Lindsay she definitely also embraced me and did everything that she could to teach me as much as I could. And she treated me like a medical student. She said, if this is what you want to do, I'm going to have you do these procedures. I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to train you so that when you get there, they'll know that you've had patient care before. And then finally, my last mentor, Dr. Naveen Arora, also in Long Island, Garden City. He's a dermatologist in Borealis Dermatology, and he exposed me to dermatology and just really enhanced my love for it. He does a plethora of different aspects of it, and I got to see the medical, cosmetic, surgical, everything all in one. And it just made me say, okay, this is definitely what I want to do. So those are my three major mentors that I've had so far.
That's awesome. I talk about the importance of mentors all the time, and you just provided stellar examples of how they can be of value, especially prior to. I love how much research you put into this decision to enter healthcare, and I think it is going to pay dividends for you.
Yeah.
And how did you select your school? Well, I guess because you picked 43, right?
Mm-hmm. So I picked 43 and I used my statistics as a baseline. And I said, okay, these are the schools that I'm going to apply to just based off of this. And then I really went through and looked through their mission and said, okay, if these are the schools that I get accepted to, which ones do I really want to be involved in? And then also what I did is I checked their social media pages and their group pages to see what are they really doing outside of what they put on their websites. And so I think Charles Drew, I'm part of the inaugural class with Charles Drew. It's the first HBCU medical school on the West Coast. And so I'm part of the inaugural class. And when the application came out, it came out later in the semester. And I just happened to be scrolling through Instagram through one of the MCAT pages, and it said, hey, this new school is just released an application. Everyone, if you can, just apply. And so they really did a holistic view. And when it came down to making my final decision, like I said, I got accepted to three schools. Charles Drew Mission and the students there, they really are geared towards diversity and treating the underserved population in a way that I haven't seen done before. And now that I'm here, I realize how much they really care. All the physicians are minorities and they really love and want to work with their community. I mean, Compton area is where we're located, and that area specifically funded to create the school initially. And so from there, they've all grown and they really care about that area.
Wow, first of all, that's a wonderful place to learn.
Yeah.
And yeah, what a special opportunity to get to talk to you and follow your journey as the inaugural class. This might be great value to them, actually. Now that I'm thinking about that. And so you have such a great head on your shoulders, a really strong support system. You're in a great environment. You've really set yourself up very nicely. And it sounds like you're a big thinker. So I would love to hear your vision for the future.
Yeah. So for me in particular, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So pursuing a career in dermatology, I want to be able to create a kind of system where I can have offices in underserved areas and offer the ability to help pay for the more expensive medications. I think that, like I mentioned, growing up, I was able to see a lot of skin disease, a lot of skin infections. And I think that with dermatology being one of the specialties that has about 3% minorities in it, I think it's severely low. And it kind of shows in the textbooks and everything when you're learning about skin disease disparities and the differences in presentation. And so I think in the future, I'm hoping that the diversity in dermatology specifically will increase to allow for more adequate care of all patients. And so I do want to be able to go back and open up clinics in underserved populations, but also have more cosmetic clinics in more affluent areas to help offset the cost. So that way I can afford to help patients who don't have insurance, who don't have money, really be able to take care of their skin, because it goes beyond just being able to heal someone's skin infection. It goes also into what's the psychological aspect that it has on them. And a lot of kids, teenagers who may have severe acne, what happens next? They undergo bullying, and then they get really depressed. And then it goes back to, how do I look in the mirror? I don't want to look like this. And so it goes beyond just being a dermatologist and taking care of my skin. It goes to affecting the entire person, the psychological, the internal, external, everything.
Yes, wonderful. I think we fell in love with dermatology for the same reasons, right? And there's so many different directions you can go in. And even if you chose just one, like say you just decided to specialize in acne, your career would still be so rich and fruitful because of everything you just mentioned, right? And in addition to the number of people who are affected by it from teenagers on, which comes to a surprise to a lot of adults who happen to still go through it in our 20s. But yeah, specifically when you talk about diversity in dermatology and the lack of diverse providers, right? So only 3% of dermatologists are Black, only 4% are Hispanic. So I love your mission to increase the diversity in there. That's something I am working on too. But I think it's also, and I think it's equally important that people who do not identify as people of color also get that education, because us alone, we cannot care for all the people of color, right? So
Yeah.
all of us need to be educated when it comes to skin of color, particularly when it comes to dermatological conditions, and to not only be educated, but have the confidence, right? Because if I live in the middle of the Midwest or rural health setting and I just don't see as many people, I still want to be really confident when that one person comes in or they have something I've never seen before. So I love what you're doing. I hope we can collaborate in the future. I love writing too. I'm a big writer, so I can't wait to look. I know you're going to be putting out a lot of published articles and maybe in some of my favorite journals. JDD happens to be my favorite journal. I love that journal. When I first saw it, I thought, oh, that's going to be boring. It's just about drugs. But the diverse amount of content they put out, even social media content, is incredible. So just a little plug for them. This is not sponsored, but I would be mad if they wanted to. So you give us your vision for your future. Where do you see healthcare going in the next 10 years?
Yes, I think they kind of overlap, because I've noticed the more schools like mine, I think Charles was doing a really good job of increasing diversity. They're really focused. I think the entire campus is mostly minority students and focus in the healthcare sector specifically. So I think that in the future we are going to have more programs in diversity. A lot of the different specialties are going to really want to increase the amount of African American, Hispanic, Latino, everyone inside of their specialties, to really have the specialty look like the areas that they're serving, to be as diverse as the population. And so I know that a lot of programs and different residencies are looking to increase diversity. So I'm hoping that by doing that, we will be able to create a healthcare system that is really tailored to everyone individually. And I think by doing that, you're going to be able to decrease the amount of implicit biases that go into healthcare. All of these issues that kind of stem from implicit bias that we do see, not only just in healthcare, but even in research. I know that fortunately, more recently, we've been able to have the FDA approve of like the orphan drug for sickle cell anemia, and that's something that's really important because people go through a lot of chronic pain with that disease, and so there are a plethora of different orphan diseases that target minority populations, and because they are not profitable, they're not looked at all that much. But I think that as we continue to really diversify the entire pool of everyone, it will really help cater to the population.
Yeah, excellent. And so now that you've been in medical school, so did you already, I don't know if you told me or we already talked about it, but you're in your second semester.
Mhm.
This is week one.
Yeah, I'm in week one of my second semester. Yeah.
Okay. And so what's this semester going to be looking like for you?
Yeah, so this semester is our last semester of fundamentals. So in semester one, we do fundamentals. So we do anatomy and physiology, genetics, embryology. And then for semester two, we go into pharmacology, immunology, and then pathology. And then towards the end, we start moving into organ systems. And so The next 2 semesters after this will be focused on the different organ systems, the diseases. And then after that, we move into rotation. So we'll be in the hospital with the doctors, really learning about different specialties. And so, one thing that I really like about the school is that we have different classes, longitudinal classes that stem from the beginning to the end. And one of them is clinical skills. And in that class, we really learn how to be doctors. We learn physical exams. We learn and are integrated into different aspects of medicine. So we work with community health workers. We take a day and we go into their shoes and really learn what they do. EMTs, street medicine. And we have another class called Medicine and Society, where we really focus on society and medicine and how people are affected, and learn about things like implicit bias and decision making, and how that really affects patients and how they're affected by our decisions. And then a research class that really teaches us how to properly conduct research. And those three are we take consistently.
Awesome. And is there anything you've learned so far that you didn't know before med school?
Yeah, I think what I've learned so far is that healthcare is very dynamic, and that the care that you receive as a patient is very different based off of where your physician comes from and where their upbringing is. I think that when people look at physicians, they assume that they know everything, but it's really a network, it's really a team. And I think it's impossible for one person to know everything, but that's why we work so well together. So if I don't know something, but I know that who you need to be referred to, and you need to go see hematology, I'm going to send you to hematology, not because I don't know it, but because I'm not confident enough to tell you exactly how to treat this. And so even when integrating with community health workers who will help you with the things that as a physician I may not have time for in clinic, but I still want you to get that extra help, whether it's medication management or resources. I really want you to be able to connect with everyone, since we are a system and it's not just physicians only, it's physicians, nurse practitioners, nurses, everyone.
Yeah, wonderful. And so our last question for this episode, what do you wish you would have known before you started?
I wish I would have been taught more networking skills. I think that in dermatology, it's very hard to network. And even now, as a medical student, I thought it'd be easier, but it's just as hard. It's just not as accessible as we would like it to be, but it's also very competitive. And so I think that if I had learned networking early on, maybe I would be in a different position, but I'm still working hard to be able to navigate that area and really be able to find additional mentors and resources that can really help me.
Curious, this networking, like with your colleagues?
No, networking in the field of like in with other dermatologists, like trying to make connections with them. I think my school's worked with me really well to find mentors and things like that. But I think that there's also a level of a self-guided networking that I have to do. And my self-guided networking, it is a bit more difficult. But my dean, Dean Deborah Provost Stith, she's so great. She really looks out for all of us. I have a meeting with her coming up where she's going to sit down and talk to me about networking, really teach me how to really navigate those different spaces. And so she really takes a personal approach, and it's going to be great.
Wow, she sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Since you're looking to network, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't extend an invitation to you to join us at the Diversity in Dermatology Conference this year. It's March 21st to the 24th in San Antonio, Texas. If you can't make it in person, we have virtual events all year long, and we'd love to have you join us, you and your colleagues, your classmates.
That sounds great, of course.
Yeah, so wonderful. That's going to wrap up our questions for today. Is there anything else you want the audience to know about becoming a med student?
I would just say that if you're looking to get into the field of medicine and you really want to try, just don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it, and just keep going no matter what.
Well, thank you, everyone. So remember, this is just the beginning of his journey. He's going to be coming back with us to share more. And so I'll have all his social media links in the description box. Is there anything else you want them to know about connecting with you?
No, you can feel free to connect with me on Instagram. I'll reply really quickly on that space. But other than that, then I look forward to hearing from you guys.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing your journey into becoming a med student, what you've learned so far, and also what you've what your vision is for the future. I'm excited to see the fruition of that, and I can't wait. So remember, everyone, you can email us your questions or show ideas to tmi.melanin@gmail.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Please share the show with your friends. Rate the Apple and Spotify podcast and leave a comment. It really supports the show and helps get the message to those who need to hear it. You can find our social media links and list of resources that we've mentioned during this episode in the description box. We release a new show weekly on TMI Tuesdays at 10 a.m. on YouTube and all your favorite podcast apps. Follow, like, and share content with all your friends. This show will air during February. I'm thinking of titling it, instead of, since it's Black History Month, something more along the line of into the future, right? History in the making. That's what it was. And so I'll release your episode during that time. It's actually kind of our break time. So this will be a special series. And then we'll have you back at the end of the semester to kind of recap what you learned during your spring semester. And so we're going to have him back on again this month. Remember to come back next week, TMI Tuesdays at 10 a.m. As we learn what it's like to become a physician. Thank you, Clarence. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for watching.